This is Signal and Noise, bringing clarity to data, tech, and AI.
Rio Longacre here for Signal and Noise at a possible event down in Miami. And it's a beautiful day. This is day number 1, and I'm here with Aubriana
Alvarez
Lopez.
Lopez.
It's a mouthful, I know.
It is. It's a lot.
I love it though.
A lot of vowels.
Yeah. Well, my name is Rio, so I get a lot of. It's a little easier, but great to have you here, and appreciate you coming down to the mansion here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here today.
So, love to talk about number one. Tell the viewers a little bit about you, your background,
Sure.
and the company Agnitio that you're the CMO at.
I am.
So
Yes. So I'm Aubriana, and I've been in the data and ad tech space for a little over 15 years now. And so I started off with working with lots of data, lots of IP intelligence, and that was working with advertisers. And then I worked at Samsung Ads for a while, so cut my teeth a little bit on the CTV side of things. And
was this right when you were kind of starting out Samsung Ads?
yeah, it was pretty early days.
Okay.
I was there kind of in the beginning of that transition, and it was really interesting to see how that developed over time, right? And then was pre 7 figures for that side of the business, and now it's massive. So it was really fun.
Yeah, it's a huge revenue stream for them. So it must have been cool, like during that beginning and
it was
pretty meteoric growth, right?
It was so fun because it was kind of like this family inside of this massive organization, and
Sure.
just to see how that tracked and grew was really, really fun to be a part of. But something that over time resonated is that there's a lot of data, right? Data was the new oil 20 years ago, and then that expanded, and then now we have all of these tools and technologies that have come into this industry to make things more rich and better and more exciting, and I just saw there's still a gap in terms of like how things come together, right? Even within one organization, how do those tools and technologies come together? And so that's really the premise was at Agnitio, people should not be shipping spreadsheets and sending slacks at midnight.
We do a lot of that.
We still do that, right? A little bit, but there's things that we're like, we should not be paper pushers as human beings, and we have a lot of worth and getting back to human connection. And so the premise was there's a way to fix this, and I think we can use AI to do so. And so Agnitio was born.
So looking at the problem statement, so it's like, let me see if I'm getting this right. So like all of these manual processes within ad tech, I mean, is it fair to say you think that's what's broken, or that's a place where there's tons of room for improvement, right?
Yes, I think fundamentally we have moved from less tools to so many more tools. However, those tools are very siloed.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens in one area of the business for an organization doesn't translate to the next. And so there's humans that are standing there and stitching things together. The analogy that I like to give is that I think ad tech is like an airport. Let's call it Atlanta. I was in Atlanta for 11 years. Nobody's favorite airport, right? You have a train at the airport and there's no air traffic control. So imagine, everything is having human handoffs. There's humans standing between different data sets and they're directing that together, just like at an airport. And then on top of that, each of those tools or technologies are speaking different languages. So yes, fundamentally, humans are stitching things together. Something that should be maybe one workflow is various and separated and takes weeks and months to do.
You think about it from the planning, there's groups of people doing planning, there's other groups of people doing activation, there's different people who are probably involved in creative, then audience development, and third-party data, and then different teams for measurement. You're right, it's like there's tons of handoff.
Research, and what we found is there's 53 days for the average campaign to go from conception to actually like lift off. And that's about 17 different people across.
Long timelines, a lot of people. I guess it's not surprising for anyone who works in media, but I think for people who don't have a media background, it's probably a shocking number, wouldn't you say?
And then add in how many tools they're using, maybe 20, 25. I'm not a math person, but if I were to like think about all the complexities there, I'm pretty sure it's a high number.
It's a big number. Yeah. And the number of people, number of tools, the timeline itself, like I don't think that's super shocking.
Nothing could go wrong.
Yeah. Never, right? Yeah. I mean, think about every handoff, there's an opportunity for something to go wrong. There's an opportunity for someone to do a fat finger mistake, for something to put the wrong thing in there. Even I was working with one client just on looking at, are the right is the right creative for the right ads serving up based on the metadata and like which which geo they're in, which audience segment, which offer even. Like, it would be shocking that there's no compliance can sometimes be really low.
And not only from a compliance standpoint, but from an actual like operations standpoint, how often do you get that information back in real time or in time enough to actually do something about that? The campaign's already run.
Sure, yeah, ads already started, budget's already spent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I agreed. It's a big problem. So AI, I guess the premise here is AI opens up the possibility to finally do something about this, right?
Well, yes and no. I'm glad you asked that question. I think yes. I think there's the ability for AI to orchestrate. And when it's done in the right way, there's, I think, a lot of endless benefits to this industry. Where I think we're getting it wrong right this second, though, is that the conception maybe is that AI just helps everybody move faster, but AI in the setup and the way that we have things in this industry today is just chaos at machine speed, right? Like we are just providing yet another tool, yet another technology, yet there's no operational layer that's stitching those AI tools and technology together. So unless there's an operational layer or an orchestration layer to bring it all together, I think there's still a big gap.
Who do you think's going to, like, okay, so you have the different tools. So it sounds like the tools are going to stay there, but there'll be a layer built on top of them that, like, they can connect to that via MCP server. And then there'll be some kind of agentic plane almost on top. Like, is this something that, in your opinion, a brand should own, an agency should own? Would this be a platform thing? Like, what would be where do you think this sits or resides, or does it not matter?
I think it really does matter. One of the most important things I think is where it sits. So, who owns it? Do I think a brand, an agency, a data platform should own an operational layer? Absolutely. And I think the reason why it needs to be owned is anybody who has any type of proprietary data or is bringing in client data, brand assets, they need to have some level of control. Now, who owns it and how it's owned is more important. So, is it owned specifically within their own client cloud, or is it something that they're shipping data out to? I don't think that anybody is ready to do that, right? You don't want to give up that control and governance. So AI,
Especially a big brand, yeah, for sure.
well, nobody does. I mean, retention of what is your bread and butter or your, je ne sais quoi, you don't want to be giving that over to anybody. And so that was the premise that we built Agnitio with, is saying, we certainly want our clients to have speed, but speed without governance and efficiency is not really a win.
Is it fair to say that a lot of the stuff being done in AI, like the governance isn't where it should be, in your opinion?
I don't think governance is where it should be in most cases, but there's a big spectrum of how companies are incorporating AI. Some are just like, no, we don't want to do it. Some are like, let's test everything, but we don't really have a plan for how that's going to roll out. I think that governance is not the antithesis to speed, honestly. It's really what the unlock is. So if you have an idea, what we do with Agnitio is if you have an idea of how you want your governance to be, that's the way that your setup should be from the get-go. Once you have that governance in place, it creates trust.
And you can run fast, right?
Yeah. So when the CMO trusts that you have an agentic layer, an operating system that's making the choices that are best for your brand, then you're going to be able to move with agility. But whenever you're kind of stuck in governance post tool integration, that's a tough spot to be in.
Who are the users of Agnitio going to be? Are these media buyers on the agency side, on the brand side, maybe both for brands that have in-house certain things? Like, who do you see like being the people using this?
There's a few different ICPs, if you will, right? There's a few different hands-on keyboard users and varieties. So I'll give a couple of different examples. We work a lot with data platforms. So you think about companies that are providing, let's say, audience data. The way that that audience data is built and the way that they bring that in comes from a lot of different data streams. Perhaps they have an SDK, perhaps they have some type of panel data that they're bringing in, and all of that data has to be enriched. It needs to be normalized. It needs to fit with a structured taxonomy. And so the way that that process happens, you have data analysts and engineers typically pulling that together. Well, that's a use case where a data analyst or somebody who sits on that side would use Agnitio to pull all of that together. And now instead of having, a team of 10, perhaps they have one that can oversee a team of 10 agents that can pull those things together. Another use case would certainly be on the media planning side, as you brought up, Rio. You've got planners, they want to have one, how do I very quickly and effectively respond to these RFIs? Because sometimes it's the the first one that responds that
Sometimes
gets the
it is, yeah.
business, right? And so how do I be really quick and effective? And how do I utilize my historical data, my historical campaign data, brands that I've worked on, products that I have available, and fill that out without having to rely on humans to respond in 1, 2, 3 days? Sometimes that's just the gap that gets the business, right? And so that's another key area. And then I would say finally on the brand side, yes, we're starting to see more of insights, right? So how do I effectively measure this across all of the different measurement tools and technologies that I have, but in one key place that I can quickly and easily ask questions in natural language where I don't need to do SQL queries to find out something? Or how do I leverage insights that I don't even know exist there, right? Like what are hidden audiences that I should be going after that I'm not leveraging? So I think a lot on that capability is using Agnitio as well.
Seeing as AI starting to automate a lot of these processes, like where do you see the role of people and humans in this process? Do you think that the whole thing eventually gets automated and there's almost no people? Do you think people will remain heavily involved, or is it too early to even know for sure yet?
No, I firmly believe that humans will always be part of this industry. I think one of the beautiful things about being in this industry is connecting with the great humans that we get to,
Humans of
because
AdTech are wonderful people. I
they
agree.
are, because let's face it, we're not like saving children or even puppies here. We are selling advertising, right? But I think that it's so important that we maintain that human connection. What I think AI does when it's used the right way, especially with Agnitio, the way we think about this is that it frees them up to actually be strategic. I think we live in this world where we're constantly in this response frame of mind. We don't have enough time to ponder, to think, and to maybe allow our minds to linger a little bit about the what ifs for clients, right? For use cases. And this is really what I think is an unlock for
It's
us.
interesting you bring that up, but because the one criticism I've been reading a lot recently about AI is, well, if you use AI, your brain's going to atrophy because you're not going to be doing certain things. And okay, maybe there's an argument for that, but I think I tend to agree with your point, which is actually saying the opposite, saying like, I even think about the way we run this podcast. There's no way we could do this with so few people and all the moving parts without a lot of AI. Now, AI sometimes isn't perfect. And like the discussion guide we
Yeah.
sent you, you got your title wrong, right? So it does make mistakes sometimes, but when I think of all of the documents it prepares, briefs, summaries, incredible recommendations for questions that we could do that in our own, but it would just take longer, right? So we use AI to assist all that. I do think it frees us up. So I think I was just looking at this anecdotally, this one example, like, from running the podcast. I think it does free us up to do more strategic things. I'm not now. I do think people tend to prefer or gravitate towards doing the things they like to do.
Yep.
So I think for certain people who like operational things, it may seem of more of a threat. But I think people who like to think strategically, use their gray matter, solve the big problems, I think it's a big unlock. I agree with you.
Well, I mean, let me just step away from like founder CMO role for a second. I think that it's a refinement, right, of my thinking process and strategy. So we've lived with this inner dialogue our entire lives, but now having something to kind of process that inner dialogue with just a little bit when it comes to your ideation sometimes is the thing that takes your idea from 2 to 10, right? And I believe that that is where the humans are always going to be in the loop. I use it all the time to refine this idea. Is this a terrible idea? And you don't want to have that conversation with a real human all the time. Sometimes you just need, what other, challenge this, play the devil's advocate to me, right? And I think that there's a place for that, because sometimes it just gets your mind sparked into another dimension of what could be, what should be. And I think that very much applies in an industry that is fundamentally creative, right? How we've taken the creativity a little bit away from what we do in some aspects, and I think that we have the ability to get that back. So I don't know, I would push back on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think that we did stray from creativity. I think this obsession with vanity metrics, performance, I mean, which, pushing people through a funnel. We've talked to other people about this today too, that maybe it went a little too far. I get it. That's how the internet got wired. And there's what we trained ourselves to do, but focusing more on creativity, on messaging, and if AI helps that, that's great. But I think you're right. I mean, I'm seeing people focus on it more, and the people that use AI the best, I think, almost paradoxically, are the ones who tend to be the most creative and have the most experience. I find that like what they're getting as an output from using an AI, using let's say an LLM, it is qualitatively much better than something that someone who doesn't know how to write a prompt, doesn't have the background to use as an input is going to get out of it.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a little less about the prompt, because are there people who are going to have their roles replaced by AI? I would be amiss to say there's not. Like there's going to
Well,
be
if with every automation, right? You think
every
about like
automation.
telephone operators don't
Mhm.
exist anymore, right? I mean, and I don't think anyone's bemoaning that. So yeah, continue.
No, so I do think that that's going to happen, but there's an opportunity right now to figure out what does that mean for your area of expertise. And I think when you own control or narrative or input, you fundamentally can step into a leadership role into that area. So whether that's in operations, or whether that's in creative, whether that's in storytelling, audiences, planning, or measurement and insights, there is a lot of I would say, like, white space.
Yeah, I agree. I also think certain jobs, I mean, most jobs, if not all jobs, will be impacted and will change, right? Many tasks will be automated using AI. But what I think is interesting too, like there's the example people give about radiologists, right? How there was a prediction that machine learning would completely wipe out radiologists, and there are actually more radiologists employed now. And part of that is there was a huge pent up demand for radiologists that was just unmet. And then, okay, well, like this unlocked a lot more, made them much more productive. So guess what? There's actually the unmet demand is now you know, more being met than it was before. I think with certain things like engineering, like there, as we're finding, okay, most coding is now done. I think more than half of coding is now done with AI, right? But I think there's probably more, just as much, if not more, demand for engineers. I mean, I know there's debate about that, but that's how I, I think there's a lot of pent up demand for that as an output, like writing code, right? So my guess is there'll probably be more. I mean, we'll see. It may impact hiring, maybe junior roles, but I think the jury's still out. We don't even know.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we know. I think there's going to be shifts for sure, but how that pans out, I'm interested to see.
Well, you're definitely in an exciting space. I am rooting for you, and I'll be keen to follow your updates and see how Agnitio progresses, and all the news you have about new features, new additions, client wins. Aubriana, thanks so much for coming and spending some time with us today. It was a fun discussion, and I look forward to our next one.
Thank you so much, Rio.